Thank you very much, Shoshana. Good morning, everyone. Boker Tov from Jerusalem. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm glad that you joined us. I'm really hoping to give you all a little bit of a break.
Like goals that will be like included in.
I'm really hoping to be able to give you all a little bit of a break today from the news, from everything that's going on, and take you on a tour through Israel. Whether you've been here before or not, you're probably going to be seeing some sites, some places that you never knew existed, and I hope it'll be a nice little break for you all. I want to thank, first of all, Shoshana for making the connection, and I want to thank the Israel Engagement Committee for having me here today, and I hope you all enjoy. So let's begin with one of the iconic views, probably the most iconic view of Jerusalem, our eternal capital. This view is from the Mount of Olives. This is probably the most, well, as I mentioned, it's probably the most iconic view of the city. You can see the entire old city of Jerusalem from the Mount of Olives, of course, dominated by the Temple Mount, which is this whole big yard over here, where the Dome of the Rock is today. This picture is an example, and I often get asked about my photography. People sometimes wonder if what they see, how real it is, and so this is actually an example of how you need sometimes to just be pretty lucky to capture a certain site, because on this day, a friend of mine and myself, we were on a trip through the Judea desert, actually, and it was quite a cloudy day. But as we arrived to Jerusalem and planned to take a sunset shot from the Mount of Olives, the skies just turned extremely beautiful, breathtaking, as you can see here in this picture. These are high clouds, and when you have high clouds, you usually get beautiful sunsets. But it was not planned, and it's just really a moment that I consider, to be God helping me to capture the beauty of
good idea.
City of His.
Okay.
So that was Friday.
Okay. I'm glad you like her.
Moving on, I can hear you guys. Some of you. I don't know if you're asking questions, but if you can, just let me know so I can address it. Okay. I'll be happy to do that, of course. So moving to this picture of Tel Aviv. This was taken from one of the high rises in Tel Aviv. Today there are many high rises. Contrary to the previous picture, though, this one is an example of a more planned shot. Here I knew that we were going to have a beautiful sunset because of the high clouds, and I planned to go on one of the towers to capture, and I was indeed lucky enough to have that beautiful sunset this evening. And I love the contrast here that you can see of the urban landscape, the cityscape of Tel Aviv, with the lights just starting to be on in the evenings, and the ocean that is literally colored pink due to the beautiful sunset that we had that night. So if you haven't been to Tel Aviv in quite a while, it's becoming more and more like probably like New York, or I haven't been to New Jersey, I have to say, but I think maybe more similar to the landscape that you're used to seeing in those big cities with towers rising pretty much everywhere every other week. So moving on to one of my favorite spots in Jerusalem. This is the Tower of David. Again, at sunset. This, I think, is one of the must-sees, one of the must-see sites in Jerusalem, and probably one of the underrated ones. I think that most people who come to visit Jerusalem, most tourists, they don't make sure to actually make a stop there. Either they don't really know what's there to offer, or for other reasons. But I don't think that many tourists know that it's really worth coming here. So this is, I'm happy to show you that it's very worth coming here and going inside the Tower of David. The Tower of David is an archaeological site. It's also a museum, of course. Right now it's being renovated, but the museum is supposed to be reopened, I think, in the next few months. But I think the highlight of this site is really the 360 view that you have of the old city. So here what you can see is one side overlooking the whole Tower of David site. And over here, you can barely see it from the screen right now, but you have the Jewish neighborhood of Emanu-El, a very beautiful Jewish neighborhood here. And on the other side, over here to the left, you can see the rest of the old city, the Temple Mount and the Mount of Olives. And it's a really very, very recommended viewpoint to make sure not to miss if you're in Jerusalem.
Noam, can I point out one thing in your photo?
Of course.
Right near Yamin Moshe, there's like a little building that has a little triangle and some light reflecting off of it to the right of it. I think if I'm correct, I think that is actually the, actually, I think we're very close to where the Hebrew Union College, the Reform Seminary, where all your rabbis and cantors studied. It's right around this area too. It's not exactly that one, it's a little to the right, but I know this view very well.
Yeah, you said that you lived here for a year, so I'm sure you recognize quite a lot of it. All right, let's move on to another view that is quite not one that you would associate with Jerusalem immediately, but this is the neighborhood of Ein Karem. It's very, very beautiful and picturesque neighborhood to begin with. It's dominated by this Russian church, and here for me, when you look at this picture, you can easily think that it wasn't even taken in Israel, that it's not Israel. It's like maybe somewhere in Europe. Maybe you can see also there's a lake here in the background, and all this greenery and the church. It looks completely like from another continent, and that's why I love this view. I love to kind of showcase that also we have so many different views to the city, and including some that, again, you wouldn't really associate with Jerusalem, with the holy city of Jerusalem. So Ein Karem is another neighborhood that I very, very, very warmly recommend to visit. It has a very nice atmosphere. Beautiful little alleyways, churches, important places, of course, and all this green and beautiful and beautiness. So that's also one of my very favorite views from Jerusalem. Moving on to this shot of Jaffa Street. This is the main street in Jerusalem. If you've been here, you probably know, you've probably been on this street. Maybe you even took the train that you can see here, kind of like as a ghost running through the picture. There is a very nice story behind this picture. This was taken back in 2013, it's quite a long time ago. The night before the biggest snowstorm that we probably ever had here in Jerusalem. So it was just that evening when it all kind of started to build up. You can see that it was already raining. You can see some of the clouds here. And I particularly like this picture because, again, it looks, to me, it kind of like resembles some sort of a European capital. It looks, Jaffa Street here in general, with a train, with a light rail actually, running through here. It looks almost like some other beautiful capital in Europe. And we're gonna see some photos from the snowstorm that was very historic, that followed day later after this picture was taken. Now we're back to the iconic view of Jerusalem from the Mount of Olives. This picture is why and we were talking about it with Rabbi Ethan just before we started. This is why I love working mostly in wintertime, taking pictures during winter. You always have a little bit more drama in the skies. You know, some people would see these clouds and would kind of like feel like staying at home because it's going to rain. But as a photographer, for me, it's always a chance for better photos, more dramatic photos. And you can see the sun rays coming through, piercing through the cloud, sorry. It almost makes you feel as if you're feeling the holiness of the city. At least that's what it was for me. And as much as I love taking photos in wintertime, I can also recommend, and again, we spoke about it with Rabbi Ethan just before, I can recommend that if you can come more than once to Israel, make sure that at least one of the times would be in wintertime, because first of all, the weather is much more comfortable. In my personal opinion, I'm a little bit struggling in summertime, but in wintertime, the weather is also a little bit more comfortable, but also gives you really a lot of like different opportunities to see the landscape differently from what you used to. And this picture is one example for exactly that. And moving on to, all right, this is the next. This is also taken from Mount of Olives, zooming in towards Mount Zion, which is right over here. And this is the Church of the Dormition. And although I just recommended you all to kind of like be in Jerusalem at least once in wintertime, even in summer, you can still have beautiful shots, especially during sunset. This is an example for that as well. Now, once again, this is one site that you would normally not associate with the city of Jerusalem, but it is. This was taken at the Biblical Zoo of Jerusalem and during autumn, excuse me. And this is going to be my sort of intro to the part where I'm taking you through the hidden side of Jerusalem. Because the next slides, the next photos I'm going to show you are going to be of various sites that people don't really know that exist here in Jerusalem. People don't really know of. Some of them are either quite literally hidden from plain view, or maybe not even open to the public. And I'm happy to show you all some of them. This is actually a project that I used to work on with a local tour guide, that we both sort of went through these hidden sites in the city and tried to unveil them, and brought it into an article that, if you want, I can later send you a link to. And we're going to start with this one, which is Tzedakiyah's cave. I don't know if you know of this one, but this is one of the, this is probably the biggest cave in Israel. This is a very huge cave that is right underneath the old city. The entrance is, by the way, just next to Damascus Gate. This is probably the biggest cave in the old in Israel at all. And archaeologists assume that this is where stones were taken to build actually both the Jewish temples, the first and the second Jewish temples. The stones are believed to have been taken from here. And there are lots of stories also that explains why it's called Tzedakiyah's cave. A lot of stories that are related to this place, to this site, that is worth reading about. But this is a very, very important site that was, again, they used the stone here to build a lot of structures, not just the temples, but also, if you know that there used to be a clock tower just above Jaffa Gate. Jaffa Gate, obviously, is a very famous entrance to the old city. We all know what it's like, what it looks like. But it used to be a clock tower just above Jaffa Gate that was destroyed during the British Mandate. And the stones to build that clock tower were taken from this cave as well. This was probably the last time that the cave was used for these purposes. Right now, it is just a touristic site. Obviously, you can enter. And there is another photo here that shows the magnitude of this place. Here you can see this is a full-grown person standing inside the cave. So you can see the cave is very huge, very large, very fascinating. So this is, again, this is kind of like off the beaten track in Jerusalem. Not many people go there, but very, very recommended, and very also interesting site. Moving on to this Italian synagogue. Now, it doesn't look very impressive from the outside, perhaps, but it has one of the most interesting stories, in my opinion. So this was a synagogue that used to, that functioned as a synagogue in Italy, in I think near Venice in Italy. During the 16th century, it was then established, and it was used up until the First World War. And going forward to the end of the Second World War, there were barely any Jews left in the community over there in northern Italy. And few refugees, Jewish refugees, after the Second World War, decided to transform the synagogue, take it as it is, and move it to Jerusalem. And here you can see inside the synagogue. Let me show you this third picture. So this entire synagogue as it is, right, as you can see it here, was transferred from Italy to Jerusalem in the 1950s, in 1952. And this for itself is a very fascinating sort of piece of information. But another thing that is very fascinating, that this is probably the only synagogue in Israel that on the first floor, because this one is on the second floor of the building, and on the first floor of the building, there is a church, which you can see here. So right now, the church is not functioning as a church. It used to be a Catholic church up until around the time, I think, that they moved the synagogue to this building in the 1950s. The church itself was moved to another site. And when they established the synagogue here in this building, they decided to keep the church as it is. And in fact, later in the years, some Italian artists were flown in from Italy to renovate the whole part that you can see here. The paintings that were done very early on by Italian artists. So this was renovated in later years by other Italian artists that were flown in. And this is another very interesting piece of information, because again, you have on one floor the church, and on the other floor you have this synagogue, which was transferred from Italy as it is, because pretty much the entire Jewish community over there disappeared after the Second World War. And another part of this structure is this. This part is a museum of Italian Jewish art. So you have quite a bit to see in this building. So this is one of the sites that are not quite on the touristic map, but very worth checking out. Very interesting, lots of interesting history, and I hope that you guys be able to check it out next time. All right, moving on to this house over here that's hidden behind this white gate. Another one of Jerusalem's hidden gems, as I call it. This is called the Siebenberg House. And you can't quite see a lot. Behind this door is actually a private home, belonged to the family, Siebenberg family. And Siebenberg we're talking about Theo and Miriam Siebenberg. They were a Jewish couple who immigrated after the Second World War to the United States and then moved to Israel in the 1970s, I believe. And when they moved to Israel, they bought a house, this house in the heart of the Jewish quarter. And Theo was very much a Zionist, and he wanted to excavate and sort of uncover the history and the connection of the Jewish people with the city of Jerusalem. So he literally just started excavating underneath his house. And this is the house when you go in. So you see the upper floor is super modern, very white and clean. And right now it turned into a museum. But the reason is because they discovered on the bottom floor, and you can see it here, they discovered almost 3,000 years of history. They uncovered a complete level that goes from the first temple period through the second temple period, including several artifacts and pretty much everything that Theo, I guess, dreamed of finding, connecting us as Jews to this place, to Jerusalem, to the Jewish quarter. And they later indeed transformed this place into a museum. And right now you can see it's a very special place where the upper level is completely new, and downstairs you have this, which is just an archaeological site, just like any other in the city. And it's one of the fascinating stories behind this site, in my opinion. So this site, currently, I think it's not open to the public again, but probably because of the pandemic. I think the woman, Theo, he passed away a few years ago, but his wife, Miriam, she runs the place. And since the pandemic, she kind of closed it down, but I think she's starting to accept groups again, and she's probably reopening this site soon. Again, one of the more interesting, I think, hidden gems here in Jerusalem. And moving on to another site that, surprisingly enough, not many know that exists, and that's the Little Western Wall. I wish I could ask you guys to raise your hand if you knew it, and I could see how many. Okay, so Rabbi Ethan, you know about this place, but you lived here for a year. So, but many people don't really know that this site exists. And the Little Western Wall, here you can see more of it. It's actually a continuation of the Western Wall that we see, that we all know, of course, but it's adjacent to the Muslim quarter. Well, there's also a lot of history behind the Western Wall in general, and the houses that were built near. You probably know that the houses, that the neighborhood that was built just next to the Western Wall, the big one, it was demolished after the 1967 war to make room for the yard that now houses thousands of worshippers. So here with the Little Western Wall, you still have the houses pretty much practically on top of at least one side of the Little Western Wall. The houses are, of course, of the Muslim quarter. So there's a lot of interesting history behind it, but I think the main thing that is interesting to know right now is that, first of all, it exists. It's exactly like the Western Wall. It's just as holy. Actually, some people say that it's even holier because it's closer to the Holy of Holies. And people put their notes in between the stones there. But what's beautiful is that it's totally not crowded, not even half as crowded as the big Western Wall. You can almost be by yourself there sometimes. Actually, most of the times that I went there, I was by myself. And there's also no separation between men and women. Then both can pray by this little Western Wall together, unlike the bigger Western Wall. So that's an interesting fact to know. And now we go in the Western Wall tunnels, and here you can see one of the holes that I think from the Mamluk period. But this is actually where you can see all the screens here. That's a new attraction, if you will, that was opened in 2016, and it's called The Journey to Jerusalem. probably some of you know that you can go inside the Western Wall. You have tours there. By the way, you have a new, I think maybe 2 new guided tours that are taking you into new places that were only recently opened. But this one is actually not part of the tour that you all know. This is a site that you can, I think, get tickets to separately. And this one offers the chance to experience the journey of the Jewish people from the diaspora to Jerusalem. And I particularly love this picture because it also shows the contrast between the old and new. You have the ancient here, the whole ancient Jerusalem, and these halls that were, that are thousands of years old, and then you have like the most high-tech computers and the modern stuff that are now actually allowing you to better understand the journey of the Jews from the diaspora to Jerusalem. And I want to take you, to one of the most, I think, magnificent and fascinating sites inside the Western Wall tunnels. And this is the synagogue that's called Sha'arei Tshuva. It's a new synagogue. It was built in 2017. It's a magnificent synagogue and one of the closest, if almost the closest, to the Holy of Holies that people can now pray in. And this synagogue, you can see here, this little dome is actually the Holy Ark. You have the books inside, and it's a Hebrew prayer that's written here. It's hard to see in this picture. And the wall behind it, this one, is actually the Western Wall. This is underneath the Western Wall. So we all know the Western Wall, obviously, plaza and everything out in the open. And this level is underneath what we all see. So that's a very, very special, very beautiful synagogue that was only reopened recently. That is now, you can only access through a tour of the Western Wall tunnels, but I strongly recommend you to consider that, because even just for this synagogue, it's so very, very beautiful. And another interesting synagogue that I wanted to show you guys that is also off the beaten track is located on Mount Scopus, and this is actually in the Hebrew University, inside the Hebrew University. It's not a very touristic site at all, but I think it's a very special synagogue as well, because it looks directly to the Temple Mount. I don't know if there are other synagogues in the city that has a very direct view of the Temple Mount, but this one does, and I think it's a very special site. It's very, very special to see when you enter the synagogue, to see the whole old city and the Temple Mount right in front of you. And now we're going to go out of Jerusalem a little bit, because I want to show you the diversity of Israel that's not just in Jerusalem. And of course, you all know the Dead Sea. This is a shot that I took during sunrise on the sea, on the salt flats, that you can walk on easily these days. You all know the Dead Sea, of course, but I want to show you what surrounds this site. And not very far from there, probably sites that you never knew existed, right in the heart of the Judean desert, You have beautiful ancient monasteries. This is one of them. This is Morsaba Monastery. It's halfway between Jerusalem and Bethlehem. It's a 5th century monastery, I think one of the oldest that is still inhabited. And again, it's very close to the Dead Sea, but not many people bother to go there, or they even know that it exists. So this is one of them. The second one is St. George Monastery, another beautiful, embedded in rock of the Judean desert, another beautiful monastery that's nearby. That as a photographer, I mean, you can do a lot documenting these sites. It's just so beautiful that you don't really need to work hard to make it look any more beautiful. But you probably didn't know that you have all these sites right next to the Dead Sea, right next to Jerusalem, and I'm happy to show you that that you have a pretty diverse landscape in this proximity. Another national park that is more like an oasis in the desert is this one. It's called Ein Prat, and to me, it looks very much like American landscapes in a way. It kind of like resembles a little bit, maybe Arizona, I don't know. And again, beautiful sites, beautiful views that you can take hikes through the desert. You have interesting forms of rocks here, bridges, waterfalls. It's very, very beautiful, very recommended if you are in the area. And of course, if you are in the area, well, we'll get to that in a minute. So this is another view that is nearby the monasteries. This picture I like to call the Promised Land, because to me, it almost it reminds me of like the site that Moses must have seen when he stood on I think Mount Sinai. Or am I getting? No, maybe I'm getting it wrong. I'm not gonna. Yeah, Rabbi Ethan is is confirming that that I'm getting it probably wrong. But the side of the land of Israel that must have looked pretty much like this, I think. And if you're in the area, of course, we can't not mention Masada National Park, probably the most famous site in the desert area, in the Dead Sea area. You probably all know the history of the site, one of the most important, one of the most beautiful national parks in the area as well. And now, here you have an example that the desert doesn't always have to be brown and boring. It can also bloom and look like, again, a site that you probably wouldn't associate, not with the desert, not even with Israel, but here you have a beautiful buttercups field that you can find several of these scattered through the northern Negev in springtime, around April, I think. That's when they start to bloom, or that's when they peak, actually. And it just goes to show, again, that you have very diverse landscapes in Israel. It's not just, what we saw in Jerusalem. It's not just the desert or Masada or the Dead Sea. If you go just a little bit beyond those famous sites, you can find other beautiful, fascinating landscapes, such as this one. Again, this one was taken in the northern Negev desert. And I'm going to take you to another forest of flowers, this one. which to me looks like fairy tale forest almost. And this one is, again, about 40 minutes drive from Jerusalem. It's called Tal Shachar. And during this time, this season, right now, the beginning of March, that's when you can see this site of all these beautiful. I'm not sure. Maybe one of you wants to tell me how to pronounce the name of the flower in English, because I'm not sure how you do that. But again, one of the sites that really shows you that there is like a lot of diversity around the desert, really.
No, just 1 second. We could stay on longer as well. These photos are amazing, and your journey has been incredible. We do have our 5th grade class who's been joining us, and we would thank them for joining us, but they're going to have to be dismissed because their parents are going to pick them up on the pickup line in a second. So thank you to our 5th grade class for joining us and seeing all of Israel. And but we'll continue, but I just wanted to make sure that they know that they can be dismissed as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Eitan. Okay, so let's quickly move on to this picture that was taken in the north of Israel. We were located in the south until now. This one, we're going straight to the Golan Heights, and this is Sa'ar waterfall after heavy rains in the winter. Again, shows the showing you the really diversity of the Israeli landscapes. So here we have lush green waterfalls, and here you can see this picture that was taken in the Upper Galilee, some rivers, streams, all this green together with a cow. To me, it kind of like reminded me of scenes that I saw in Switzerland or Austria. But again, you can see so many different landscapes, so many different things when you just when you know where to go. And moving on again to another site in the Golan Heights. This one is the Nimrod Fortress. It's not a very popular site on the touristic map again, but it's one of the, first of all, I think it's the biggest fortress in Israel. And this is one that I would definitely recommend you all to try to visit if you're here. Again, it's called Nimrod Fortress. You can see the entire, almost the entire Golan Heights and Hermon Mountain as well from this fortress. And it's not the only one. You have many interesting fortresses in the northern area, in the northern part of Israel. Another one, all right, this is again Nimrod Fortress from looking from a distance this time. But another one is this one. This is the Yechiam Fortress. It's in the Western Galilee. Again, another site full of history and beautiful views of the Galilee, as you can see from here. Another fortress, which is the Monfort Fortress, again, also in the Western Galilee, very near to Yechiam, the one that we just saw before. So if you focus on this area in the Western Galilee I can say between the Galilee, the Western Galilee to the Golan Heights, you can find a lot of these gems that are very, very interesting. Moving on, all right, I want to show you this synagogue here, which is in the Golan Heights. This one is in Bar'am National Park. It's a synagogue, I believe, from the 5th century. Probably one of the best preserved ancient synagogues in the world, anywhere in the world. You can see this is the entrance gate that that has been preserved perfectly in perfect condition. And again, just another fascinating site with beautiful history that is off the beaten track, and just proving again that everywhere you look, almost in the Holy Land of Israel, you can find so much history of our own people here that goes back thousands of years. And now we're going to go to the highest point in Israel. This is the Hermon mountain. I always get a lot of people that tell me that they didn't even know that it snowed in Israel. But it does in wintertime. The Hermon is the highest mountain. It's on the border with Syria and Lebanon. And you can even go skiing in wintertime. And not many people know that. So again, showing you the extreme diversity that you can find here. And we're such a small country, but super diverse. Going from north to south, you can find anything from deserts, monasteries to skiing up in the Hermon mountain. And here you can see all these people that are doing just that. And all right, now taking you a little bit to a more familiar site, probably. This is Tzfat. These are the beautiful alleyways of the old city of Tzfat. Again, another city with tremendous history for us Jews, going back thousands of years. And what I want to show you here is that while you see those alleyways that are indeed very beautiful and interesting with a lot of shops and stuff like that, there is also a side that probably you didn't really know of, and that's underground. And underground, as you can see here, it's actually, I think it's relatively new. This part that was open to the public. This is actually a very ancient Jewish neighborhood. It used to be a very ancient Jewish neighborhood, dating back to the 16th century. And you can literally go from the modern alleyways here that you can see here. You can go down and visit this neighborhood. Just go back hundreds of years and see what it was like during the 16th century. So this is, I think, very interesting also to keep in mind. Of course, the Sea of Galilee, you all know as the Kinneret, a site that's very important to the Christian community. There are lots of sites here. This one is the 12 Apostles Church. There are many churches here in this area, of course, because of the history that, according to the Christian community, Christian tradition, of course. And just the area of the Kinneret is one that you can spend, is an area that you can enjoy at least 2 full days exploring these beautiful sites and viewpoints that you can find here. This is one of my personal favorites. Here, going again back to the Western Galilee, this is Rosh Hanikra. This is another special site that's, I think it's the only site in Israel that you have such white cliffs standing right on the ocean front. And this is very, very close to Naria, which we're going to see one of the pictures from there. It's right on the border with Lebanon, but still it's very safe and very, very nice. You can take a cable car going down, and you can visit the grottos here with beautiful turquoise blue water. very interesting site. Again, very diverse, looks like another place altogether. And this is, this was taken in my hometown of Naria, just near Rosh Hanikra. This is one of the beaches there, over there, of course, during sunset. Shoshana knows this picture very well. Maybe she can tell you why afterwards. So this was taken in my hometown. This is where I grew up. I grew up by the beach. There is the story behind it is that I think for me, this is where my whole career, if you will, started. I used to come here to the beaches growing up and just reflect. You know, you try to understand after the army, after the service, try to think what you want to do and what your next steps are going to be. For me, this was my place to go. You can always enjoy beautiful sunsets in the city. And I'll show you another one. You can always enjoy them. And I was always inspired by these beautiful views. And that's when I think I pretty much decided to take my photography from being just a hobby and turn it into a career.
Noam, I don't want to interrupt. That is a beautiful story about a photograph that means a lot to me because that's how I found Noam, and I purchased that photograph that's hanging in my living room that I'm lucky to see every day. I don't want to interrupt you, but I just want to be cognizant of your time, and it's 10:55. So let us know, if you need to go or if you're okay to keep going because your stories are beautiful and your photographs, of course, are just breathtakingly beautiful. So
thank you very much.
Let us know.
Thank you. Yes, I do. And we're just about to finish, I think, the to go over all the pictures. So no worries. Back to the more popular sites, I just wanted to quickly show you one of my favorite places. Of course, the National Park of Caesarea. Again, one of my personal favorites. I work with them quite a lot, so I spend a lot of time there. And again, one of the more popular places, but one that definitely needs to keep being on the touristic map when you're here in Israel. Sorry, it's jumping all the time. Yeah, this is also Caesarea, of course. Another one, another national park that is totally not on the touristic map and perhaps should be is this one. This is the Herodion Park. It's probably the less touristic national park here in Israel. This one, it was built on a man-made hill, which is this one. As you can see here, it's a man-made hill built by Herod the Great. And he built a palace there. You have bathhouses, you have many sites, even a first century synagogue on top of this site. And this is the view that you can see from above of the entire, what used to be a palace of Herod the Great. Is also assumed that he is buried there, that he made his tomb or his grave located there. And lastly, before we head back to Jerusalem quickly, this is, maybe you don't recognize from this viewpoint, but this is Cave of the Patriarchs in Hebron. This site, of course, Hebron, the city of the patriarchs. Again, in my opinion, I think one of the most essential places to visit for us Jews when you're in Israel. Here you can see the tomb of Abraham.
inside the cave of the patriarchs. Highly recommended, again, not to leave it out when you're visiting here. Now, quickly going back to Jerusalem and my last few personal favorites. This picture I took during Birkat Kohanim, the priestly prayer that was during Passover. So you can see thousands of people here. It was actually before COVID, so it was thousands of people gathering here to pray. Beautiful sight showing, the resurrection of Jerusalem to be what it is today after so many years. And all right, this is another view from the Mount of Olives that I personally like. The Mount of Olives is, as you can see here, that's an ancient Jewish cemetery, of course. And at some level, it's a huge cemetery, but at some level of the cemetery, you have gates. You have gates that has little Star of Davids on them. So this Star of David is actually on one of the gates. And I just took the picture through the Star of David. I personally selected this picture to show you guys because I think that in my work, I do it quite a lot. I think it's important to remind people the connection that we have as Jews to the city of Jerusalem, because it's often been, discussed and sometimes even disputed that the Jewish history here is maybe, it's not just ours or, this kind of stuff. I like to remind people that Jerusalem has been the Jewish capital for thousands of years. And it's one of my ways to do that through my photography. And if you remember at the beginning, we discussed the pictures that was taken one night before the biggest snowstorm we ever had here in Jerusalem. So this was it. This was during the snowstorm of 2013. Again, many people, when they see these pictures, they tell me, I didn't even know it snows in Jerusalem, but it does. It's not very often. It's quite rare. It's even rarer when it's this much snow, as you can see here. But here, when it happened, I knew I had to go to one of the highest viewpoints and capture this this picture showing you the entire old city just covered in snow. I think it's one of my favorite times to take pictures, when it's all covered in beautiful white snow. And another favorite shot I took that during that time was in the Western Wall. And here you can see just a single worshiper that was brave enough to stand there and just keep praying with no umbrella, no nothing, through this heavy, heavy snowstorm. And I think it just it makes me feel a little bit emotional when I see this one, this picture of this guy. And all right, another shot that I chose to almost end the presentation with is this one from Yad Vashem. Of course, the Holocaust Remembrance Center. Again, part of what I do in my work is really remind people the history that we've all been through as Jews. I personally am a third generation to a Holocaust survivor. And for me, you can't be here without appreciate the journey. And you can't be here without remembering everything that happened. And this picture I took of this group in Yad Vashem is
it symbolizes for me the importance to remind people to not let the memory fade. What you see here in this triangle is a film that they showcase there at the entrance to the museum of what Jewish life looked like before the war. And so it moves. And when I took this picture and it kind of moved, the screen moved, and then this little child stood here. And I kind of froze this moment. And for me, this is like, again, it's just reminding people that you have to not let it fade away. You have to keep remembering and reminding everyone of what happened. And that's why I chose this picture to be part of the presentation. And another one of my personal favorites is this one. Again, as a Zionist, I love to showcase everything that has our flag, especially this one. This was actually a guy from the US that I happened to have met there, who posed like this for his friends to take a picture of him. And to me, it's, again, it symbolizes so much for us, for me as a Jew, as someone who now lives in Jerusalem. And it's just an emotional moment that I personally very, very much love. And again, talking about the flags, this is the flag parade during Jerusalem Day. Jerusalem Day commemorates the reunification of Jerusalem during the 1967 war. And this is just us celebrating our being here. Not a lot needs to be said more behind it. I personally love this sort of very, well, it's a celebration of us being here again after so many years. All right, this is, I think, before the last picture. This is one that I took just a couple of months ago, actually, on the Temple Mount, reading from the Book of Palm. This was sort of my personal way to almost protest, if you will, the fact that right now, us Jews, we can't go on the Temple Mount, which is the holiest site for us, together with the Western Wall, and pray. Right now, this is very unfortunate, but since 1967, the decision was made that Jews cannot pray on the Temple Mount. And I personally think that it's wrong. And this was my personal way to kind of like go and protest, if you will, and in a very peaceful way, but just taking out the Book of Palm and read on the Temple Mount as a Jew, because again, this is the most holy place for us. And that's what we're supposed to do. So this is the story behind this picture. And all right, this is actually one of my audience's favorite. Many people love this one. For me, it's just again, capturing a moment of the life in the Jewish quarter, with this little girl following her mom from behind. Again, just one of my favorites of the Jewish quarter. And with this festive photo, we're gonna end the presentation. This was taken during the Independence Day celebrations here in Jerusalem, again from the Tower of David. That was very, very festive that day. And with this one, we're gonna end. And I really hope that I made you all kind of know a little bit more about the sites here, get excited a little bit about what you can see, what you can do here, what you can experience here. And I hope that you will all be able to join us in festivities, only festivities in the future. Be'ezrat Hashem.
Thank you so much, Noam. This was truly amazing. Here's Noam's information. I highly recommend everybody follow him on Instagram. That's how I found him after I came home from Israel and started following some different Israel associated Instagrams to just bring me back with beautiful pictures and videos. And his content is really incredible. So I just want to, does anyone have, I didn't see any questions in the chat. I have one quick question. If you were really nervous when you went to the Temple Mount, bringing a prayer book, that must have been, I don't know, how much trouble you could get in for doing that.
Well, unfortunately, you can get into trouble. My advantage, if you will, was that I don't look religious. When Orthodox people, Haredis and other Orthodox Jewish men go on the Temple Mount, they are immediately being taken through a specific route just to make sure that they don't do what I did, basically. They don't start to pray or try to do any other provocation on the Temple Mount. But I don't look religious, so I took that to my advantage. And no, I was not afraid at all, because again, this is, I felt was my absolute right to do that. I mean, it's the capital of the Jewish state of Israel. If Muslims can pray there, why can't I? I can say that I did take some. I did some percussion. Okay, this is the part where I'm getting my English a little bit mixed up. But I took with me. Actually, it's a funny story. Maybe not so funny. I took with me pepper spray, just in case one of the Muslims there would not like the sight. It's also something that happens sometimes. Luckily, nothing happened, but I wasn't really afraid. Again, I thought that it was something that I totally had the right to do, and I was willing to face anything that could possibly follow.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to go home safely. There is a question in the chat. Where is the park with the hiking trails? Park with hiking trails. Not sure which one. And the flower forest, I guess you mentioned, was 40 minutes from Jerusalem. Where is that too?
Yes. All right. So let me see. All right. I guess this one was the forest that was referred to. Yeah. This is called Tal Shachal. Tal Shachal. It's a settlement under the same name of the forest. It's about 40 minutes from Jerusalem. That's true. And the park with the hiking trails, probably this one. It's called Ein Bat. Maybe I can I write it on the chat for you guys? All right. So let me see.
Jonathan also has his hand up, so I think you can unmute if you want, Jonathan.
Thank you so much, Noam. It's a really wonderful presentation. You have, amazing photos. I was curious your style with the landscape photography. A lot of your stuff was very high contrast. Are you using neutral density filters, or are you generally bracketing to be able to get things to look as fantastic as they do?
Thank you very much, first of all. Yes, I use bracketing. I take, for anyone who doesn't know what that is, I take sometimes up to 3 different exposures of the same photograph. and then combine them together. This way you can minimize the differences between highlights to shadows, between dark places to very lit places. And that's why you can get sort of like almost like one very, very clear and less contrasted photograph.
We had someone in the chat from Shari Berman who just came back from Israel to visit her daughter. Said just flooded back. Your pictures brought her great memories, but also places that she's never seen. So welcome back, Shari, as well.
Welcome back. Thank you very much. Maybe for the next time, for your next visit.
Any other questions? I guess, I mean, I want to thank you so much for this. This was really, really incredible. I want to also just let everybody know that I'm excited to announce we have our first annual Temple Emanu-El photography contest coming up. So look out for information. We're going to be looking for the most beautiful photographs to exhibit on our temple walls to enhance the Jewish and Israeli experience for our congregants and our visitors. And I'm very grateful. Noam has offered to help judge this contest. So more to come, but we'll have more information. We are going to be celebrating all these photographs on Wednesday, May 4th on Yom HaAtzmaut. And so more information to follow, but we hope everybody will please share their past photographs they've taken on their trips to Israel, or also just things celebrating being Jewish. And I'd like to turn it over to Rabbi Prozovich to just make a quick announcement as well, and then we can wrap up.
Thank you, Shoshana, for organizing this. This has been a wonderful morning of Israel, and so thank you to the Israel Engagement Committee and all their hard work, and thank you to Noam. There's places I've been to Israel many times, and there's places that in Jerusalem that I've never seen. On my next trip, definitely the Italian synagogue, which I looked on the map and I've walked by it so many times in the city center.
Yes.
But I've never entered it, so that will be on my stop. And speaking of that, we are going to Israel in August on a family trip, and we're still recruiting. We have about 6 or 7 families joining us, and we would love for you or your family or your grandchildren to join us on this August trip. So hope that you can make it. If you have any questions about that, you can talk to me or our chair, Elise Everett. So we hope that you will be a part of that as well. So thank you, Noam, for really bringing Israel alive. Your photography is amazing. We put in the chat your website, so you should I hope that everyone clicks through and sees even more photos and ways that we can remain connected with you as well.
Thank you very much again. Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to very happy to be here again and to show you guys my work. And I hope to see some of you maybe in person here in Jerusalem.
That would be wonderful.
Would
Thank
love
you,
that.
everyone.
Okay, thanks everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.